how Holistiplan came about. We figured there's got to be a way to automate this a little bit more, to scale it, so that as you grow as a firm and bring on more clients, you can do tax planning for all of them and all of your existing clients. You don't have to pick or choose who to do it for. If you're a much larger firm, like an enterprise firm, large RIA or broker dealer, you can make the tax planning process and deliverable so much more not only scalable but consistent across all your advisors.
When Kevin Lozer decided to leave his RIA practice and launch a fintech, he didn't expect that in less than 18 months, his new tax planning software would be winning awards and getting implemented by some of the largest RIAs in the country. I spoke to Kevin about his company's plans to expand from selling to RIAs into broker-dealers and other enterprise wealth firms, his advice for other tech startup founders, and a whole lot more on this episode of the Wealth Tech Today podcast. Hey, come on in, sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode of the Wealth Tech Today podcast. I'm your host, Craig Iskowitz, the founder and CEO of Ezra Group. We are a new kind of consulting firm. We only specialize in the wealth management space, and our clients are fintechs and enterprise wealth management firms, and we help them make better business and technology decisions. Please check us out at EzraGroupLLC.com. This podcast features interviews, news, and analysis on the trends and best practices in the wealth management technology space. And just a few housekeeping tasks before I forget. Be sure to subscribe to the show wherever you listen to podcasts so you don't miss future episodes. A quick shout out to our new sponsor, the Sebastian Strong Charitable Foundation. You can find them at sebastianstrong.org. And here we go with the interview. I'm happy to introduce our guest for this episode is Kevin Lozer, co-founder of Holistiplan. Kevin, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Craig. Thanks for the invite. I'm looking forward to having the conversation with you today. Good to see you again, too.
Good to see you. We're just talking about conferences again, because we used to sit next to each other at conferences and listen to panel discussions and things and make jokes. And hopefully we'll be able to do that again in the fall, right?
Yeah, I hope so. Well, we're definitely planning on it. And yeah, the last time you and I saw each other and it's the last conference I was at was T3 in San Diego back in February, before things really started getting shut down. So that's the last time I was on a plane. Last time I was at a conference. I'm looking forward to getting back.
Yeah, me too, man. That was the last conference, and it seems so long ago, but it will happen again. I know, because I've already committed to a couple conferences in the fall. So I know you guys are looking at conferences too. So it's definitely going to happen. We'll get back to it. And we were also talking about football. So you are a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, correct?
I am. Yep. Since I was 5 years old, I was back during their heyday in the late 70s. So, and being from Pennsylvania, I was about 3 hours east of Pittsburgh in the kind of the central part of the state. So yeah, grew up a Steelers fan. I've changed allegiances across my other sports now, moving to the DC area, but I've always kept my allegiance to the Steelers.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. So I'm an Eagles fan. So I've been an Eagles fan for over 40 years. So I know the feeling. But the Eagles and Steelers do not play this year. So we can't make any bets on whether they head to head. And the Eagles are going to be bad this year. So I don't want to make any bets either about which will have a better record. But we can certainly have another podcast on football discussions and about the two franchises and their direction.
Yeah, the two Pennsylvania franchises. We'll have to have a healthy debate about that.
Little
See
known
if
fact.
I chose wisely being in the center of the state.
Exactly.
So I had my choice. I could go Steelers or I could go Eagles. And for football, I ended up taking the Steelers again because they were in Super Bowls when I was a kid.
It's okay. In World War II, when they had a manpower shortage, the two teams merged for a couple of years, and they called themselves the Steagles.
The Steagles. That's right. Yeah. I almost said I remember that. I don't remember that.
No,
I wasn't
don't.
alive then, but I read that. Yeah.
And I don't remember it either, just to set the record straight. All right. So enough football talk. So Kevin, give me the 30-second elevator pitch for Holistiplan.
The Holistiplan is going to allow you as an advisor to implement, if you're not currently doing tax planning, across all of your client base. And it's, tax planning, I know can be kind of a vague word, kind of like financial planning. Lots of people have different definitions of financial planning. I've heard different things that you can do with tax planning. It started with a tax return review process that we automated, but now it's expanded into pretty much letting the advisor know what your client's tax situation is very, very quickly, in seconds in some cases. And then you can make sure you're incorporating that information into the entire financial picture for your client. So I don't know, did I hit 30 seconds there?
I wasn't even timing it. I was looking in my notes, but no, and I really like the idea, and I have no bias here. When I heard about what you guys are doing, I was really stoked about it because, my firm being a technology consulting firm, we work with a lot of broker dealers and enterprises about what software they should use for their advisors, and tax planning is becoming way more important now, and more advisors are involved in tax planning. But there really was never any automation around it. It was always hire a CPA, get people and throw bodies at it. And that's how we do our tax planning. Or if you have really high net worth clients, then you had software for very complicated tax optimization. But your software is really for regular RIAs, mass affluent, to just run through tax returns and give advice. Am I correct?
Right, it is, and it really, to your point, I'm an advisor. I was running a mid-sized fee-only RIA. My co-founder and partner Roger Pine, likewise running an RIA in Texas, and we both identified that tax planning, it involved checklists. We had to have cheat sheets at our desk with all the different phase outs and thresholds and limits. It was a very time-consuming process to do. In fact, the firm that I was helping run, we had to make decisions on which one of our clients we thought would benefit the most, and segment them, because we didn't have the capacity to do it for all of our clients. So we were having to make decisions like that, which in my view weren't ideal. And it's, again, because it takes a lot of work, a lot of time to do it manually. And that's really how Holistiplan came about. We figured there's got to be a way to automate this a little bit more, to scale it, so that as you grow as a firm and bring on more clients, you can do tax planning for all of them and all of your existing clients. You don't have to pick or choose who to do it for. If you're a much larger firm, like an enterprise firm, large RIA or broker dealer, you can make the tax planning process and deliverable so much more, not only scalable, but consistent across all your advisors, right? Because one of the many things I've learned being in the industry for more than a decade about tax planning is advisors, while there's some consistency around as a framework, we all had different ways to deliver the end product, or the things that we were potentially looking at in a tax return, for example, for potential planning opportunities. That if you're a large firm, you can't do that consistently across 200, 300, 1,000 advisors in your organization without software.
Exactly, and you're jumping ahead of my questions here, so I'm trying to catch up with you.
Oh, sorry.
So don't worry. So my next question was going to be, why did you found this firm? You were running a successful RIA. You're a CFP. Your co-founder's a CFP. Why pivot mid-career to launch a fintech? What was you already gave me that, but really, what did you think about to do that? I mean, that's a big decision, to go from I'm running an RIA, I'm happy, I'm successful, to switching to a very, very different business model and a very different kind of company.
Yeah, it was a desire to really help the industry scale more. It was an opportunity to, I'll put it this way. Like, what I realized is, while I did really enjoy being an advisor and having client relationships, I had 75, 80 client relationships. I was also recognizing that you can either build a big team underneath you to continue to scale and reach more people, Or, when Roger and I were talking about scaling financial planning overall to reach, potentially thousands of people instead of just hundreds, or you could pivot to software. And that was part of the impetus to start Holistiplan. It was part of the original ideas to really try to touch as many clients as possible. We both believe tax planning was really, really important. And again, everybody could benefit from it. It's something that we pay taxes every single year as citizens. And even for folks that you would think have a pretty static situation, tax legislation changes, particularly now, so frequently. So it's really an opportunity to build those relationships with those clients a little bit more, and be able to touch more and more clients that I think by doing it manually, advisors just aren't able to serve as many clients as they could otherwise.
It's all about scale. The I want to congratulate you. I remember one of the ways I heard about you was when you won fintech competition at XY Planning Network. That kind of put you guys on the map back in 2019. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, that was exciting, and we're always wanting to say thanks to XYPN. It's great that they do that every year. They weren't able to do it in 2020, unfortunately, because of the pandemic. But what a great opportunity for startups, fintechs that they offer. But yeah, and that was very early stage for us. When I compared the product that we showed at that compared to what it is now, I mean, it's light years ahead of where we were in 2019. But it was also a little bit, we were so new. We launched in late June, and we had only had a month or two in the market when we went to XYPN. So we didn't really know what to expect. We weren't sure if it was ready for prime time or not at that point. But we won that, and like you said, it definitely launched us. We got a lot of buzz from that, and then it's just snowballed from there as advisors started to hear about us and sign up and start using it, and then tell their friends, who told their friends in the industry. It really just launched us tremendously. We for the first year or so from September to September, I don't think we did much of any marketing. It was all just word of mouth at that point. But we were signing up so many subscribers at that point, that's all we've really had time to do at that point.
It's a crazy time when you're a startup and things are happening and you're making some progress and things are coming. You're building a company. It's the proverbial jump off a cliff and build an airplane on the way down.
And especially from an infrastructure standpoint for Roger and me, that was definitely our first big challenge. So we built a product. We had an idea. We built a product around it. We got some of our friends to take a look at it and provide feedback. That helped out a lot. Then we launched this product, but really, it's still just the two of us at that point. And then we go to XYPN and win the competition. And now, I mean, like the next day, we're getting people, and a lot more people signing up. And that September, October, November, especially because this was fortuitous. It wasn't, we didn't plan it this way, of course, but having won that competition in the fall during what is, for many advisors, peak tax planning season, right? It's before the end of the year. You got to get everything done by December 31st for it to count. So people were in tax planning mode at that point. So October and November were just crazy busy for us. And since then, we had to focus on, instead of marketing, we were already ahead of the game in that way in some regards. We had to focus on the capacity and the infrastructure to support the sales that were coming in. And now that we've done that, then now we're ready to go, and we've kind of launched a marketing engine again.
Sebastian Strong is a 501c3 nonprofit whose goal is to raise awareness about childhood cancer and fund research for less toxic, more targeted treatments and cures. The charity was founded in 2017 by the parents of 16-year-old Sebastian Ortiz after he lost his year-long battle with a rare form of childhood sarcoma. Sebastian Strong focuses on funding innovative research that has the potential to revolutionize cancer treatment for children. Cancer is the number one cause of death by disease among children, yet less than 4% of the National Cancer Institute's budget is allocated to childhood cancer. Sebastian Strong is partnered with leading cancer research institutions around the country and actively collaborates with other childhood cancer foundations that support their one key belief that kids deserve better treatments, better outcomes, and better lives. Please help the Sebastian Strong Foundation to continue their mission by making a donation, spreading the word about beating childhood cancer, or getting involved. You can do that by visiting their website at sebastianstrong.org. That's Sebastian, SebastianStrong.org. You can also follow them on Instagram and Twitter at SebsStrong, that's SEBSSTRONG, or on Facebook at Sebastian Strong. What advice would you give to people who are just now where you were back in 2019, where they're getting ready to launch their product and they really want to make an impact? What advice would you give them in order to help them be more successful?
It's a good question. I would say first and foremost, be willing to put the product, and yourself out there for feedback. We learned a tremendous amount, not definitely from our beta testers before we even had launched an actual product for sale. But then in the succeeding months, years, even since we've been doing this, we have a constant feedback loop with our subscribers and future subscribers. So I would say get it out there, let people comment on it, have some thick skin if you need it to take that feedback and learn from it, be willing to learn from it, and be willing to change plans even, or change the roadmap a little bit to go in a direction that the market is suggesting you should take.
Great advice, Kevin.
It's part of that, I think it was Lean Startup is the book, the popular book. It's mixing a little bit of that in with just a lot of blocking and tackling as well.
So let's jump ahead a little bit to 2020, the end of 2020, and you landed a big client, Carson Group, huge, one of the biggest names in the RIA business, well respected. Ron Carson, winner of many awards, building a huge brand. And how did you get that deal? And what is it that they saw about your software that they felt would help their advisors? They have a great tech stack. So for them to pick you to add to their tech stack, I think is a great badge of honor for you.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah. And thanks to Carson Group for being willing to give us a shot. But I think what helped, first of all, they were hearing about us from advisors in their community, their own advisors at Carson Wealth. I think maybe some of the Carson Partners firms were even early adopter subscribers of ours at that time. So that's definitely been our approach with the go-to-market approach for everybody, which was get it out there, start letting folks buy it, and then they become our advocates, our ambassadors for the larger corporate enterprises. But I think that they saw that some advisors were using it. They worked with their organization to provide a couple more demos, talk about what the product could do and what it was going to do. I think what they see, particularly large enterprises like that, is again two things. It's efficiency. It's taking what is potentially an hour-long process or longer to review a tax return, turn that into finding some planning opportunities, then turn those opportunities into quantifying those opportunities, and then turn all that into a client deliverable. That is an hour process, if not longer, per client. So when you've got 30,000 clients, that's an enormous time saver when you can now use software that can do all of that in minutes instead of an hour or two. So it's efficiency, and then it's consistency. It's knowing that now that you've got a software on your tech stack that every advisor is going to be using, they're going to be delivering tax planning consistently across the entire organization. They know what each advisor is going to do. There won't be pockets, this office does it one way, this office does it another way. They're all using a hodgepodge potentially of deliverables for the client. It's one consistent client deliverable, and it's one consistent process to walk through finding potential opportunities for the client. So every advisor is doing it the same way.
So looking at the progress of your firm, you've gone from XY Planning Network, which is fee-based advisors, some of the smallest firms, usually one-person shops, to small RIAs. And now you're moved into Carson Group and now to larger firms. What's your enterprise strategy? Do you see your product useful for larger RIAs and broker-dealers?
Yes, definitely. So we're going to continue now that we've got a lot of traction in what we call it, solo advisors and the ensembles, the multi-partner type firms. That was certainly our first go-to-market. And now that we have a few other enterprises like Carson, we're now doing more and more demos and having conversations with a lot of the other large RIA enterprises. We've had quite a few conversations with broker dealers as well, and even a few other large enterprises that outside the BD space. So certainly part of our plan now, and it certainly helps though to have thousands of advisors. We're closing in on 2,000 advisory firms using the software. So having that certainly helps to have the conversations with the enterprises.
I'll say that helps. That's big. To me, 2,000 separate clients is big in anybody's book, no matter how big they are. That's a lot of work. It's a lot of effort, a lot of support, a lot of infrastructure required. You don't just have a two-person startup and support that many clients within this industry.
That's right. No, we've gone way, way, way past Roger and me, which is where we were 18 months ago or so. We've built out a team now, both at the C-suite level and then support organizations, sales organization, developers, things like that. So certainly no longer a two-person organization, but by any means, and we're hiring now on a monthly basis for something, it seems. So and that's fun too, to build out the team and build out the infrastructure.
I want to talk more about startup best practices. Who was your first hire after you and Roger, and why?
It was our CTO, Chief Technology Officer. So we hired him in December. So just a couple months after XYPN, and like I said, we were drinking from a fire hose in October and November, but we hired Scott in December of 2019. The reason why is we knew as we continued to build out the infrastructure, even the human infrastructure for the rest of the business, we needed to focus on kind of the internal controls. Well, we knew as we were going to eventually get into enterprises and BDs and things like that, we would need to make sure we had all our security ducks in a row. So, and again, I know a lot of startups, the first hires are oftentimes kind of on the sales and marketing side, because that's their challenge, right? It's they've maybe built a product and now they need to let people know about them. Well, thankfully, again, we had XYPN and that competition, and Michael Kitsis had Roger on a success podcast shortly after that. So we had enough sales coming in to make us happy. We had to focus on the infrastructure, and Roger and I, again, Roger was a coder, but it certainly wasn't his profession over the past 12 years. He was an advisor like me. So we knew our strengths were building a product that we knew advisors would appreciate and buy because we were advisors ourselves, but we knew we needed the technical expertise to help deliver it going forward.
So now that you're moving to larger firms, RIAs, broker dealers, into the enterprise space, now you're moving into my world. This is where my company as a group really does a lot, and most of our clients are in that space. And being able to standardize across hundreds of advisors or thousands of advisors is critical when you're working with these kind of firms. And integrations are also critical, since you need to be able to pull data, move it back and forth to be integrated well into the environment of an enterprise firm and to make it seamless and to reduce the amount of work they need to do. So you've recently integrated with Redtail and Wealthbox. Why did you pick those, and or why did you pick CRM as the first integration, and how does it help advisors be more efficient with your product?
Yeah, we picked CRM first. We thought that was we knew we were both holding household information, right? So in order to start with using Holistiplan, you need to create a household and upload a tax return. So CRMs already have that household information. We also knew that we were providing planning opportunities through our analysis, through the software's analysis of that tax return. And those are great notes, great observations to then have in your CRM, because most advisors are living day to day, all day long in their CRM. That's one of their most, I'd say most advisors feel like that's one of their most important pieces of software that they have, one of them at least. So to integrate with those, bring in the household data from the CRM into Holistiplan saves you time entering those couple pieces of information that Holistiplan needs to create that household. On the back end, it's a two-way integration for both those. Then we can send some of the tax data, right, that's coming from the tax return or that we're calculating from the tax return. That's really important information that can give you a snapshot of the client's situation. We can push that to the CRMs, and now it's in that that software that the advisors are living in every day and are going to go to when the client calls and it has a question and you need a piece of information. You generally head to your CRM, and all that tax data would be in there for them. So it's what we've been doing from the very beginning, even with the idea of, instead of entering a whole bunch of information into yet another system to get planning observations out of, the pivot very quickly to using technology to read in the tax return. It's all premised on trying to get advisors out of having to do a whole bunch of data entry as part of their job, or their team doing data entry, right? That's if we can eliminate that type of work so that advisors can focus on the client relationship and analyzing that data instead of entering that data, that's a huge win for everybody. So the integrations that we do or have done and will continue to do are focused on how can we just have this data flow backward and forward so that advisors don't have to enter data.
Analyzing instead of entering.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, that's as advisors, I'm a career changer myself. I was in the corporate world for 11 years before I got into financial planning and became an advisor. I certainly I didn't get into the industry to have to, take all kinds of data and enter it into this system, system A, system B, system C, throughout the day. So if we can spend most of our time analyzing the data, and then reporting out that data and the observations that come from that data to our clients in an efficient way, then that's just going to make advisors' lives and larger firms' lives that much better.
I'm just going to keep saying analyzing instead of entering over and over again, because I like the way it sounds.
All right, cool.
Can you share anything, so some of the new products you've come out with recently, and anything on your 12 to 18 month product roadmap?
Sure. So in January, we launched our tax prep letter feature. Up until that point, our software was primarily, again, focused on you upload a tax return, you get a nice client deliverable with some observations and a pre-populated scenario analysis screen, which allows you to do some forward-looking projections, again, without having to enter much data. But in January, what we did was launch this tax prep letter feature, which now allows you to help close the communication loop between what you've done in the prior year So let's take this season as an example. We're in 2021. We're doing well, not we as advisors, but the CPAs and the clients are doing tax prep now for the 2020 tax year. What you did last year. What we learned from being advisors and from our subscribers is some of that great planning work that we do doesn't get communicated fully to the CPA, uh, and therefore doesn't get reported on the tax return correctly or at all. And if it doesn't get reported on the tax return, it never happened, right? From the IRS perspective, it never happened. So that was always a communication loop that we were trying to figure out how to close. So this feature allows that. Now an advisor uh, can, throughout the year even, so now in 2021, as you do maybe a qualified charitable distribution, a QCD, or set up a donor advised fund, or gift appreciated securities, or do a Roth conversion, now you can go into the tax prep letter portion of the product and check a couple boxes, write a very brief, quick note, and now in essence, what you're building now throughout the year is a tax prep letter that you can send to the CPA or the client to say, hey, and this would be done in January or February. Hey, these are all the things we've done last year. Here's all the documentation you need. Now there's no reason why the tax return is not going to get filed correctly the first time, opposed to the dreaded amended process, or flat out not getting to take the opportunity of the benefits that you were trying to take advantage of from a tax planning perspective. So so that was our first foray really into really making, realizing that tax planning is not just a one-time thing throughout the year. Yet maybe some of the heavy lifting is in the fall, right? When you got to get things done by December 31st. And in the springtime, you're maybe collecting those tax returns because it's fresh on the client's minds because they just filed them, right? But we're doing stuff throughout the year for clients as advisors that are tax impacting. And that's where, again, I said earlier, tax planning has a lot of different definitions. It's really being tax aware of your client's situation. In Q1 now, you can use Holistiplan to make sure you create that letter that closes the loop and make sure you're making the tax prep process for the CPA and the client run smoothly versus the hiccups that historically have happened. So our roadmap going forward is going to be those types of things where we continue to make this knowing the ins and outs of your client's tax situation, if that's what you want to define tax planning as, doing that tax planning throughout the year, making it easy, and anything that you're doing from a client perspective that touches taxes, you're able to use Holistiplan to make that efficient and scalable.
Good answer. Okay, we are running out of time. So I have the last question. Can you talk about, or the next to the last question, can you talk about any trends you're seeing in the industry? About, you're talking to 2,000 advisors. What are some things, I guess, around the tax area that you're seeing trend-wise?
Yeah, I think, well, I know people are getting more and more focused on taxes, right? Because of the legislations, going on, the Secure Act at the end of 2018 or 2019, the CARES Act of 2020, the Appropriations Bill in December of 2020. Now we have the American Rescue Plan Act, all things that are impacting tax legislation. Clients, and now we're going to potentially have more tax legislation this year with the Biden's tax proposals. We'll see how that turns out. But taxes are on everybody's mind, it seems. And I think one of the trends I'm seeing is that advisors are becoming more and more focused and realizing that they need to they need to focus on their client's tax situation. It's not tax advice, right? That's different. It's doing tax planning, knowing their client's tax situation. It can be as simple as, even advisors that are very investment management focused, and they historically have said, I don't talk about taxes. I manage the portfolio. The taxes are for the CPA to do. Well, what you're doing in that investment portfolio impacts the tax situation, and it can impact the client's expense situation down the road. An example is you decide to sell 50 shares of Tesla. Well, maybe if you sold 49 shares of Tesla instead of 50, they wouldn't have crossed over the Medicare Part B and D IRMA premium thresholds, causing thousands of dollars of expenses 2 years from now for your client. So though even those investment type decisions, savings vehicles, you're going to save into a Roth or a traditional IRA, those are tax related decisions that advisors are recognizing they need to know the client's tax situation. And the problem is, historically, it's been manual and very hard to do. But now there's software out there like Holistiplan that allows you to do that much more smoothly. So that's one of the big trends I'm seeing.
And one final question for you, Kevin, before we go. Steelers record this year. What's your prediction?
I'm going to go, this is the last year for Big Ben. So I think they're going to try to send them to the Super Bowl. They're going to go 12-4. I'll go 12-4, maybe 11. I'll lean towards 11-5, 12-4.
You have to add a game there because this year they went to 17 games.
Oh, that's right. There's 17 games. They play Seattle now this year. So I'm going to go then 12-5. That actually makes it easier. I'm going to go 12-5.
There you go. And for the Eagles, I'm going to go the opposite. I'm going to say 5-12. So we'll see who's closer on their own team. So, and for that, Kevin, thank you so much for being here. That's a wrap. Appreciate your time. It's been great.
Yeah, thanks, Craig.
Hey, it's Craig again. A couple of my takeaways from this episode. I really like Holistiplan's product and where they're going and their uniqueness in the industry. I collaborate with Michael Kitsis on his Advisor Tech Map every month, and you can take a look at the tax planning area. There's lots of products there, but really Holistiplan's the only one who's doing what they're doing, which I feel gives them a differentiation in the industry. As you could tell from the interview, I like hearing about how founders run their company, how some of the trials and tribulations they go through as they're growing the firm. So I was trying to tease out some of those best practices and tips and some of the experiences that Kevin had in founding and running Holistiplan, and their integrations and how they're moving from RIAs and That's it for this episode of the Wealth Tech Today podcast. Please go to our website, EzraGroupLLC.com, and register for our newsletter. You will get a monthly email, just one a month, with some updates and overview of the industry, and you will not be disappointed. And I'll talk to you all again next time.